No, if it chooses not to ask the question, are you replacing, is this ship replacing permanently an Australian vessel? If you don't think that's a question that the delegate who's charged with enforcing the law of Australia about maximising the use of vessels registered in the Australian General Shipping Registry and Coastal Trading, if you don't think they are connected, look, I can't help you, Mr Murdoch. It seems fairly obvious to me that one of the questions you would ask Alcoa is, do you intend to permanently replace
I think
an Australian flag vessel?
the evidence my officers are providing is there were no grounds to have a suspicion to that effect at the time we processed the application.
What about the intention of the government that put in place the current legislation which this Parliament's chosen to leave in place? I appreciate we've tried to repeal, okay? What about enforcing the objectives of what the government who put in place the Act was?
Well, Senator, as I said...
Or do we reinterpret it when the government changes to the will of the new government which fails to amend
Senator,
it in Parliament?
the department operates the Act as set out by the Parliament. It is a matter for the Parliament to change the Act. The department does not do that. We apply the Act as we consistently do. If there are errors in the way in which we've applied the judgment, that is a different matter. But I can assure you,
and it wouldn't have happened on our watch. And it wouldn't have happened if this legislation had been properly enforced.
Well, Senator, it did happen on your watch, and that's quite. It actually did happen on your watch, and that's quite clearly demonstrated by the figures around the amount of freight being carried.
We've been in government for 2.5 years.
Yeah, that's right, and the reduction in the amount of
years.
the reduction in the number of vessels and the reduction in the amount of freight, and the
2.5
reduction in employment did not all occur under our watch.
If this is wrong, this is something that occurred
just
under
because
our
you
watch.
wrote something
This would not have happened.
Order. This committee has heard in a separate hearings of this matter in great detail. It is obviously a cock-up which both governments, previous and this one, are party to. And I mean, this government has got to fix up the cock-up from the previous government, and it's very messy, but making it into a political thing is not going to solve anything. I mean, you're no bloody angel in this, Senator Conroy.
Are you asking a question, or are you giving us a stream of consciousness? Because I've got some questions I'd like to get
We're
through.
all at fault.
No.
We're all at fault.
This would not have happened on our watch.
What did happen on your watch, Senator?
This is your law.
That's the point. You can deny it all you like.
This is your law.
But the reduction...
That did the stitch up between the minister and bloody Alcoa.
The reduction in the number of vessels,
it's a stitch up from the
reduction in the employment and the reduction in the amount of freight on the Australian coastline happened on your watch as a result of your
legislation. There's another minister's guilty.
Well, it is very serious.
You might want to try and palm it off on one.
Let's move to my next question.
I'll start pointing the finger. Start with Minister Truss's office and bring in a few more.
Order. Senator Conroy, you have the call.
Does the Minister's delegate take into consideration the financial viability of a company which is dependent on the product to be shipped under licence in the granting of a temporary licence?
Senator, sorry, Senator, I'm just reminding myself about the terms of the Act. Yes, Senator, as I say, the decisions on the Act are made applying Section 34, which specifies the basis on which the criteria on which the decisions are to be made. The issue of the financial viability, and sorry, Senator, in this case, are you referring to Alcoa or?
No, it says the financial viability of a company which is dependent on the product to be shipped. So I'm assuming it's Alcoa that's being referred to.
Yeah. Senator, what we would tend to do in this, what we did do in this sort of a situation is if there are comments received from third parties, we will consider those comments, and we will seek the views of, sorry, I should say, Senator, specifically in this case, in relation to this specific application which was issued, we did not look specifically at those factors.
Okay, thank you.
But Senator, if I could add though, Senator, when the court action had been commenced, Alcoa put in a subsequent application for a temporary licence to cover the contingency that the federal court found against the issue of the licence.
Albo's just catching him up.
Sorry, Senator Conroy, can I just...
Come on, Albo.
Can I clarify something there? So the temporary licence that you first granted was a one-off, was it?
Oh, what, sorry?
A one-off voyage.
No, sorry, Senator, it was covering 17 voyages, Senator.
Okay, no, hang on, Chair, hang on. Just got to... Okay, 17 voyages. Okay, and then what?
And so what happened was when the Maritime Union of Australia commenced federal court action, Alcoa lodged another application to cover the contingency that the federal court would find against the validity
So when they
of the
first applied to
permit.
you, so I just want to be quick, because Senator Conroy wants to, but when they first applied, being Alcoa, until the time when the guys through the MUA took industrial action on the MV Portland, how many trips had it done?
I think there'd just been one voyage, Senator.
Okay, so what would happen, the ship was being sold, it was going anyway. So Alcoa can be cute and have one, they could have 30, they could have 17. Nothing stopping them being cute, was there?
Senator...
Unbeknown to you.
Yep.
Although I think if they're asking for 17, they're up to something, because ships don't just sort of sit there and do some fishing.
Senator,
off it.
when the second application was lodged, on this occasion, the maritime unions did provide comments on the application. When those comments were received, we initiated processes to consider those in the context of the decision on the application. One of those issues which was raised was the financial viability of Alcoa, and we undertook consultations to ensure natural justice. We consulted with Alcoa about the arguments that had been raised by the maritime unions.
Mr Sutton, I'm going to cut you off here. You know Alcoa didn't even have the decency to talk to the guys. You know Alcoa, this wonderful company you're talking about here, you're consulting with, the boys were halfway around the voyage. They'd taken off from Kwinana, and one of the crewmen found out from the local Portland rag that his job was gone. So I wouldn't be blowing too much wind up Alcoa's bum at the moment.
I think Senator Conroy's nearly been sorted by Albo. But could I just ask a question in terms of the viability of Australian coastal shipping? And I'm concerned, not as a politician, but about the well-being of Australia and the security. And the US and other places have had to come to terms with this. Under the arrangements, which is, you know, as I say, was put in place by a previous government, the law, was it that you could do 2 trips and then you could have a wage structure, a revamp of your wage structure on the ship? Do you across that part of it?
Yes, Senator. Under the Coastal Trading Act, and it's linked to the Fair Work Act and the Fair Work regulations. For a ship undertaking voyages under a temporary licence, from the 3rd voyage onwards, it is covered by the Fair Work Act, and in particular, Part B
they'll
of
police
the Seagoing
that.
Industry Award.
Settle. And so, I mean, we're all likeable rogues, you know, the human species. So you would never get to the 3rd trip. You'd send the ship. So if the ship that's done 2 and the next trip, it's got to pay Australian wages. So I'm the Colombian master of the ship, which we don't even know who owns the bloody thing, correct?
Yep.
We don't know who owns these ships, correct?
Senator, information on the ownership of the ship is provided to border agencies at the time they enter.
Well, we were told that we don't know.
Sorry, Senator, at the Flag of Convenience hearings, we talked about the fact that under this piece of legislation, you don't need to know who the owner of the ship is. But that's not to say that information isn't easy to establish. And that was the evidence that Mr Kinley from AMSA gave.
We've been through this.
We've
But
done
I'm the Colombian master, and
you can't tell.
I could have everything from dynamite to bloody cocaine in the bottom of the ship. You don't know who owns it. Hang on. So I say, well, it's the 3rd trip coming up. We'll duck off somewhere else for a trip, then we can go back and do another 2. Is that right?
Senator, the situation varies depending on the particular market sector and trade that they're engaged in. For example, container ships that are on regular international rotations around Australia,
will usually exceed the 3 voyage limit because of the nature of those
In a
rotations.
row? 3 in a row?
Sorry?
3 in a row? 3 voyages in a
Yes,
row?
they would do a lot more
And
than
they're all
3 in
paying
a year,
Australian
Senator.
wages and conditions, are they,
Under
Mr.
Part
Sutton?
B, that's correct,
You can
Senator.
prove that?
There are other Australian ships that involve bulk carriers, which are involved in regular temporary licence trades, and they certainly, again, exceed the 3 voyage limit regularly.
You're talking about the gas off the Northwest Shelf, are you, or what?
Senator, there's LPG tankers that carry LPG
I know the
around
answer, that's why I
coast.
threw it at you, Mr. Sutton, because it's too cute, your answer.
Order. No, well,
It's
you
far
know,
too cute.
That's your judgment.
You can't guarantee that this MV Portland, the work that's been done by the MV Portland by this foreign crews are going to do 3 in a row and pay Australian wages. You know darn well the chair is right. You see them for 2, then we won't
So
see
in the
them again.
national interest,
You know that.
Senator, that's not the advice
In the national
that
interest-
employment has shared with us.
order. In the national interest, and take away all the politics.
It's Australian.
So shush. And the viability of Alcoa, part of its viability, the savings on this was allegedly 5 or 6 million?
6 to 8.
6 to 8 million by getting rid of the ship or whatever it did. But this is not your problem, Mr. Sutton. It's the nation's problem. And at the same time, Australia misses out on several $100 million in tax from Alcoa. How stupid are we to think that that's a proposition, to save 6 million and, you know, get in the middle of the night on a ship and cart them all away, and at the same time ignore the fact that these bastards don't pay any tax?
That's right.
Pardon my
Excuse me,
language.
Senator, can I